Hi, this is Sarah from Keystone Editions, and in this video I'm going to talk about some new approaches to dusting prints with dry pigment. This image here was printed in a color very similar to the pigment that we were using. We also mixed a fair amount of dryer into the ink to help the adhesion of the pigment. Because we had to cover such a large surface, we built this extra wide brush that would cover the whole width of the sheet in one go. To do this, we just used some of those long, bristle, soft Chinese brushes and fixed them to a thin board so it was easy to use just with one hand. To start, we put a really thick bead of graphite powder down at the short end of the print, and then with gentle flicking movements drew it over the whole surface of the paper. Now, two things are really important when you're doing this. And the first is that you put a lot of graphite powder down to ensure adequate coverage. And the second thing is that you really don't use any pressure. You don't want to press the pigment in at this point. And once the entire sheet's been covered, then take the brush and draw the pigment gently from one side to the other in the opposite direction as well, and that way you'll make sure that the coverage is as even as possible. Another extremely important thing is that you must wear a respirator while you're working with dry pigment, and also use an extraction unit, otherwise you're going to have dust all over your workshop. Once that's finished, then take a single small brush and gently buff the pigment in using circular motions. Go across the whole print just as if you were buffing in a gum layer with cheesecloth, from left to right and then from top to bottom. Do this quite a few times. Again, it's important not to use too much pressure when you're doing this. Just use the tips of the brush bristles to move the pigment around on the surface of the print. Keep going until there's very little pigment left on the print, and then gently brush off the excess. And then put the print in the drying rack and let it dry for at least a week. Okay, now once the ink is completely dry, then you're ready to blow off the excess ink with the air compressor. The pressure we used was about 100 psi, and we also used this attachment on the edge of the airbrush to change the shape of the air coming out so it'd be a wide and flat stream. You can take it pretty close to the surface of the print, and as you can see here, the blank paper actually does get pretty clean. The dusted area on most prints is usually pretty small, and so to finish it off, you can rub it with a pile of those soft eraser crumbs. But on this image, we tried that, and as you can imagine, we got lots of scratches in the otherwise flawless background. So we spent lots of time cleaning all the little white spaces with a kneaded eraser. And here is the final result. Now, as far as breaking the rules of dusting prints with pigment, we made quite a few exciting discoveries during this project. The first is that you can actually print on top of a previously dusted ink layer, as we did in Brigitte's second image here, where you can see that we've printed black on top of the graphite layer. On the first image, we printed another layer on top of the graphite, in this case white, and dusted that with a different pigment so it would stand out from the background. You may have noticed this extra strip of paper that we fixed onto one edge of the print. Because it's a bleed print, and because we had to print another layer on top of the dusted graphite, we needed some way to touch the print without leaving finger marks on the surface. Punch registration would have worked, but we didn't want to run the risk of damaging the graphite surface when tearing down the print afterwards. The gap in this strip allowed us to easily hold the print and line up the registration marks during printing. To hold the strip on, we used Filmoplast, which is an archival self-adhesive tape that comes off easily afterwards, and it doesn't leave any residue on the print. I hope this has given you some new ideas about working with dry pigments, and if you have any questions or want any information, just drop us a line. Thanks for watching.